Aloha, Luminary. I wasn't planning on recording any episodes while I was here in Hawaii this summer, but I couldn't help myself with all the things going on in the cosmos this last part of July. So I know you're already feeling this upcoming second full moon in Capricorn. And whether or not you've been watching the news, I know that you've been seeing it play out in your world. So I want to share with you today why this second full moon in Capricorn at the anaretic degree of 29 degrees in Capricorn is your call to truly see that we are beginning a new world and that you are born to lead. Welcome to Star-Powered Astrology for Changemakers. I'm Leslie Tagorda, your guide, a Hawaii-born Filipino-Jewish astrologer who loves navigating visionaries like you through the spiritual journey of your work so that you can be inspired to lead by your chart and become the luminary leader you were born to be. Hey Luminary, welcome back. It is Leslie Tagorda, your leadership and brand astrologer. And whew, can we just say it's been a fast and energized time in the cosmos where we are all at critical mass. Now, I'm not saying this to be a fear monger. You know that I hate fear mongering astrology. And if you're already the kind of like nervous type of person listening for all the answers into astrology, I really encourage you to take what I say with a grain of salt because we all have lived experiences, we all have different life paths, and astrology is meant to guide us and inform us, not necessarily to predict the future. But we can see in the cosmos, in mundane astrology, and just like all of the elections that are happening right now, we are at a crossroads. And this full moon at 29 degrees of Capricorn, our second full moon that we get to have. For all intents and purposes, we have a blue moon. This is showing us that this critical mass, there's like this crossroads, right? There's one road is about all the old ways, and that road is coming to an end. And there is this new road, this other road, where this is the new way of collective consciousness, of goodness, of love, of justice. And so at this crossroads, your part in choosing and deciding, because that's what it means to come to a critical mass, is a decision needs to be made. Something is changing. Not that there's disaster happening, but things are changing. So when you are choosing this road forward, it's really going to come down to, are you going to tap into your own inner power, your own inner responsibility, your own inner authority, that inner accountability, instead of looking outwards and depending on external places and people to give you power or to give you access or to give you permission, all of those external authorities through duty and even entitlement. Ooh, that entitlement, that's a big word that I want to start exploring over like the next few months. I won't go totally into that today, but I want you to just kind of think about what is your relationship with entitled? What do you feel that you are entitled to? I'll leave it there for now. But this full moon, it is time for endings. It is time to say goodbye to the old guard and time to say hello to your role as a star-powered leader. Okay. Now, if you tend to be anxious or, I would encourage you to watch the news, like figure out where you are consuming things, right? Consuming things, not just your food, not just the people and the energy that you surround yourself, but like with the media, with the news. Watch what you are consuming, because it's going to be super easy to be, or even to surround yourself with all the chicken littles running around screaming, the sky is falling, the sky is falling, the sky is falling, right? Because if you watch the news, or if you surround yourself with those type of people, that is what you're going to see. Indeed, there are terrible things that are happening in this world. But most likely, if you are watching this podcast or listening to this podcast, you live in a more privileged or blessed kind of situation where you get to make choices. You get to have more inner authority and freedom and choices. And if this is you, instead of just waiting in the background, feeling entitled and waiting for things to come happen to you, this is your call that you need to take a step forward, to activate, to motivate, to advocate, because we can't just assume that all of the work that, the women's suffrages movement, the voting rights, human rights, women's rights. There's people that fought for those rights that if we just feel entitled just to receive them, you can see how all of those things, those things are not entitled to us anymore. We have to take action. And so right now, it's truly that time to be done looking for all that outside authority and to find that inside authority. Yes, it takes courage. It takes emotional heart and security and love. And yes, it takes wisdom, this courage, this heart, this wisdom. These are like the traits of what is a good leader: someone who has courage, someone who has heart, someone who has wisdom. Like the whole Wizard of Oz was written on these three premises of what makes a good leader. Are you missing courage? Are you missing heart? Are you missing wisdom? Like the three characters in that Dorothy finds in the Wizard of Oz. But to get to your own sense of courage, to get to your own sense of heart, your own sense of wisdom, this is all in your unique way. And to be able to do this, you need to know yourself. Yes, maybe through astrology, maybe through some other ways. You need to be able to regulate yourself so that as change is happening, whether, change can always be stressful. Change is here, change is happening, but how do you regulate yourself so you're not reacting? So instead, you're responding from a place of calmness, from a place of joy, from a place of security and steadiness. And how do you surround yourself again with others that support you and share your vision and your values? Again, watching what you consume doesn't just mean what you're eating and what you're drinking. It's what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you're energetically receiving from the people that you're choosing to be around. Okay. And so what this takes is keeping your eye on the path. And there's this Hawaiian word that I recently learned while I've been here called maka'ala. And maka, I knew it was like when this person told me this maka'ala, I was like, ooh, I know the roots of these words. I know maka is I, and ala is like the road to. If you've been to Oahu, there's like Ala Moana, which is the road to the sea. Or I used to grow up on this street called Ala Lilikoi, the road to the lilikoi or the passion fruits. And I always love that road too. And so when you put them together, that maka ala, it means keeping your eye on the path. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, especially with this full moon, and I'll talk about this full moon, I promise I'm going to get there. The reason why it's so important to keep your eye on the path is that at this time, you need to know who you are, what you want, what you are trying to create, and be aware of it. Be conscious of it. Keep true to what you want instead of losing sight and getting distracted by other things. Remember that one of the reasons that probably why you're listening to my astrology podcast is because you know yourself as a change maker, as a leader, as a visionary. So, what are you here to change? What are you here to inspire in others, to guide others to? Because remember, you are born to lead. Now, I share all of this with you as I want to talk about the astrology of what's coming through. Because everything that I shared with you again about finding your own self, regulating yourself, understanding what you're surrounding yourself with, what you're consuming, this is all about keeping your eye on the path. Things are shifting and changing at such a quick pace. And as we move into the second half of the year, things are going to get a little bit more energetic. Things are going to shift, things are going to change, things are going to be disrupted and unpredictable. Like, oh my gosh, I'm recording this like right after all of the news of like the global outage. And I was listening to Pam Gregory, one of my favorite astrologers. If you don't know Pam Gregory, she's this UK astrologer. She's an older woman. She's so beautiful, and just her energy and her presence and her calmness. And I was listening to a podcast that she recorded a few weeks ago about this specific time, and she's like, I don't predict things. She's like, I see what the energy is in for the world with the, you know, the Mars Uranus conjunction, all these things. And she was just like talking about like the orange Cheeto. She was talking about she was talking about just like, you know, like global like technical things. She was talking about leaderships, rolling your heads and all these other things. And I was like, oh my gosh, how the heck did she she's not she doesn't predict, but she definitely predicted all of this. And so today, the reason why I'm bringing all of this, why I'm talking about her and looking back at what she was saying, and she's just giving us some really good guidance of what we can do from within. So in this episode, I want to go back and I want to talk a little bit about that Mars conjunct Uranus that happened exactly on July 15th. But, you know, 4 days later, we are still within that crest of that energy. We're still feeling it with that kind of global shutdown with Microsoft and all that and the global technology going down. I think it's like Microsoft and some other company that just had this ripple effect in banking and travel. I woke up in Hawaii to that news. I was like, oh my gosh. I also want to talk about Mars in Gemini, which happens tomorrow. On July 20th, Mars moves into Gemini and how the pen is mightier than the sword. So I want to talk about that. And I want to get deep into the second full moon in Capricorn at this anaretic degree of 29 degrees, because in this second full moon in Capricorn at this particular degree, we are at an ending point, a critical point. Again, not a critical point because like, oh, the world, you know, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. A critical point because now we have to decide. And then I'm going to follow through and end this episode with just some suggestions on how to regulate yourself when we are in the midst of a world order changing. I know I kind of feel like I've been talking about this world order changing for a few years now, because to me, this really started all the way back in 2020. You know, we are thankful that we don't have these like giant seismic shifts and like everything changes, you know, all at once. Things do happen like that, but notice when things happen like all at once, it can be very jarring. It can be very shocking to the system. So it's really nice when we have these longer periods of time for things to change, because we can soften into it. We can choose. We can feel like we can prepare ourselves a little bit. You know, there's so many different ways of looking at the pros and the cons for different things, but I'm really appreciative that we have some distance to get used to things, to make changes, to get prepared. Now, I want to go back to that Mars Uranus conjunction. When I was recording that July forecast back in late June, I asked us all to make note of this peak of July 15th when Mars, the planet of action, the planet of aggression, the planet of motivation and energy, and at its shadow, the planet of anxiety, fear, resentment, would meet up with Uranus. Uranus is electrifying, it's awakening, it's revolutionary, and it disrupts because it shocks, and you just never know which way it's going to go. Not all shocks are bad, right? Like sometimes if somebody has had some cardiac arrest, we can like shock their heart back into movement. And so a shock is just a volt of you know, like a bolt of rush of energy. And so when Mars and Uranus meet, you know, whenever they have an aspect, whether it's a trine or an opposition, a square, or this time a conjunction, this is a new beginning of this kind of shock. And it's it's even hotter and more electrical because of Mars. And both of these in Taurus means that Taurus is about earth energy, grounded energy. So this happened in Taurus. This happened on July 15th, and we're still feeling the disruption from this. So if you were watching the news the day before the exact conjunction, this is when that orange Cheeto had an assassination attempt on him and received a sniper bullet right through his ear. He wasn't, hurt more than the ear. And this was quite the rallying cry. Now, I haven't investigated this too much. There's a lot of astrologers that have been already doing kind of the astrology of that particular moment and why it was so significant with, according to 45's chart, he has that midheaven at that degree. So that Mars Uranus was happening right at the top of his chart. That Mars Uranus was also conjunct Agel. Oh my gosh, I should know this. Fixed star Agel, like, or Medusa, which often symbolizes the rolling of heads or the toppling of leadership. And quite frankly, I was very grateful, no matter how much I want him out of the picture. I do not wish for him to be assassinated like this, because that would only put him on a pedestal and make him a martyr for the right extremists to come together and, do what other like, violent or crazy things that they do. And I didn't want him to have that kind of martyrdom. That would be terrible if, God forbid, that he was, gravely hurt at that time. Now, this is happening all in kind of the mundane or the global aspect, right? So, we get the assassination attempt. Also, earlier today on July 19th, we had a mass global technical outage with some Microsoft things going out that impacted travel, banking, and even more industries. And so this definitely has to do with this Mars-Uranus conjunction. Now, you probably are already feeling it, and whether you're feeling it really intimately depends on whether or not you have natal energies around that late degree of Taurus, because Mars and Uranus meant, I think it's 26 or 25 degrees of Taurus. Forgive me that I don't know the exact details off the top of my head, but that late degrees of Taurus. So if you have late degrees of Taurus, or energies at late degrees of Taurus, late degrees of Scorpio, or even Aquarius and Leo, any of those fixed signs, then you were probably receiving that energy a little bit more than others. Like, so for me, I have Aquarius. I have like my sun and Jupiter at those late degrees of Aquarius, and I also have Mars there. And I remember at that time, because I was listening to my own energy, I knew that there was a lot of things going on. I was like, I got to be super, super patient right now. Traffic in Hawaii is just super, super crazy. People are going fast. There's construction everywhere. It's like this really urban, tight city, and there's no public transportation. Everybody is in a car. And so I remember driving on the road that Saturday, leaving like this really crowded farmer's market. And I was like, checking left and right, signaling, just trying to be patient. And then boom, like right in front of me, this car gets swiped from out of nowhere by this van. And I didn't see this van coming. This person who got sideswiped in front of me didn't see this coming. I was like, what just happened? And this van was trying to cross the intersection before the light turned red, and instead like hit this car. And like that could have been me if that car had moved up faster and I had just like gone forward. So my suggestion and reflections for all of us is that when the sky has all of these energies, like these really energetic things going on, maybe they're conflicts, maybe they're not. It's like the thing that we can do personally is, again, maka'ala, be aware, be conscious, know what we want, be patient, be compassionate, right? The worst thing to do is to rush around, to be in a rage, especially with Mars and Uranus. So this energy is fading away, but that particular point in the sky is still sensitive. So, notice when the moon is going to come back around there, that can trigger that energy. So notice what was going on for you around then, and just, open your heart, ground yourself. Okay. That truly is the best thing to do right now. Now, Mars, of course, moves much faster than Uranus. And so Mars is now approaching Gemini. As I record this, Mars is at the final degree of Taurus right before it moves into Gemini. And, Mars can be thought of as warrior energy, right? We all need warriors. We need to be our own warriors. We need to be advocates. We need to be activists. We need to stand up and speak for our own rights or for other people's rights. And this is how Mars energizes and motivates. And so Mars, again, can be a lot of physical energy. And as it moves into Gemini, this is going to be the time to watch your words. Because, my friend, words are powerful. I try to remind my son about, being grateful and the things that he says, because, even if like the self-talk that we have about ourselves or just like little snide remarks or judgments that we might think or talk about other people or, ourselves or other people, those words and thoughts have tremendous power. And when Mars is in Gemini, let me just say, the pen is mightier than the sword. So your thoughts matter, the words you speak, the words you write. So again, be kind, be compassionate, speak your truth with as much kindness as possible. Mars will be in Gemini until early September when it then moves into Cancer. Mars is slowing down a little bit because, towards the end of the year, we're going to have that Mars retrograde. And so as we're moving, I want you to really note how your thoughts and how your writing is really your secret weapon, your sacred weapon, your sword that you can do good with. But of course, all tools can be weapons. So will you choose your words, your pen, your keyboard, your thoughts? Will you choose your words to be a tool for good versus a weapon of destruction? So definitely, if you've been feeling that urge to write, or feeling that urge to share your thoughts, this is a great time because Mars will be activating your Gemini energy. So look in your chart, notice which house is ruled by Gemini, and as Mars is moving through that house, feel that rush of energy. Like for me, I have Gemini in my first house. I'm really looking forward to having more vital physical energy in my body. I've been doing my best. One of my promises of like kind of my time in Hawaii was to move my body every day. And I've been doing that. And I want to do that also. But after I come back to Hawaii and when we start Leo season, I'm gonna start showing myself online much more. I'm feeling that urge to come back to life and be more visible online. So I hope you join me because I'm going to be using this Mars and Gemini to really share my thoughts in a much mightier way. Okay, my friends. So let's talk about this second full moon in Capricorn. I'm going to be sharing my screen. So if you are watching on YouTube, you can see my screen. And do know that this chart is cast from San Francisco. I'm currently in Hawaii, but this is a chart that I drew a while back while I was in San Francisco. And so you know that a full moon already happens when the moon sits exactly across the sky from the sun. So moon and sun will always be in polar opposites. Remember, the first full moon in Capricorn that we had on June 21st was at 1 degree of Capricorn. And so this second full moon, our blue moon, is at 29 degrees of Capricorn. And that 29 degrees of Capricorn, what an important degree this is. So notice, if you're watching this video, notice that this full moon is conjunct even though it's out of sign, conjunct Pluto, sitting, which is currently retrograde and sitting at 0 degrees and 55 minutes. Pretty soon, Pluto in its retrograde motion in September is going to go back to this 29th degree of Capricorn for the very last time. So between September and November, Pluto is going to go back to that 29 degree of Capricorn degree for the very last time. And in November, after Pluto starts moving direct again, once Pluto leaves that 29 degrees of Capricorn, Pluto will not return to Capricorn for the next almost 250 years. And so over the last couple of years, as Pluto has been dipping its toe in Aquarius and then going, let's go back into Capricorn, Aquarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Capricorn, Pluto has gone back and forth over these 2 degrees of 29 degrees of Capricorn and 0 degrees Aquarius at least 5 times, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, because Pluto, the process of distillation, the process of intensity, and really the entire process of death and rebirth, it is doing that at this final degree of 29 degrees of Capricorn. And so this is one of the symbolisms that make this full moon, which, you know, your full moon is always about endings and celebrations, just kind of looking back and reflecting on everything that has happened. And so this is our last chance to prune away all of the old Capricornian ideals. Now, if you've been following me for a while, you know that I've been talking about this new way of Capricorn. In traditional astrology, Capricorn is about the hierarchical structures like institutions and governments and corporations and like the military and governments, everything that is like top down. We know from the Reagan administration that top-down trickle economics does not work. That when anytime there's something that's top down, the power stays at the top. Power is never disseminated down below. And this is one of the reasons that Pluto is doing its job, because there is no top down anymore. Instead, what is being reborn is circular. It's collective with Aquarius. It's for the people. Remember, the last time that Pluto was in Aquarius, this was the time of like the French and American revolutions. And so this was giving power to the people. And when we give power to the people, this means that we all need to lead. That's why I'm trying to get you to that place of inner authority, to recognize that you are here to lead and that your leadership style is written in the stars. And so there's great symbolism that is asking you to awaken, to reclaim this part of you, and to say goodbye to giving your outward, to giving your power away to authority figures, to duty, and even entitlement. Oh, I'll talk about that more later. Like one of the things, like raising my son, and my son, he's having a more privileged life than I had that I was raised in. He's going to be set up with certain blessings and privileges, and I'm so grateful for that. But I want him to recognize his privilege. When we do not recognize our blessings and our privileges, whether this be, privilege based on sex or race or income or social status or whatever it is, when we do not recognize our privilege, that is entitlement. And where does privilege come from? It comes from like those top-down hierarchies. And so, sorry, I'm going in tangents and I'm just kind of speaking on my like soapbox, but these are the things that just like really bother me. And so I always tell my son, I will not have an entitled son. I was like, there's nothing worse than entitlement. So recognize your privilege, be grateful for your privilege, and thank all your blessings, for all your blessings, for your privileges. We each have privileges. It's something really important to look at, especially with this full moon. Now, the full moon also is opposite the sun in Cancer. And so this is showing us that this Capricorn Cancer polarity is about security. Capricorn about physical security, power, and security, and Cancer about emotional security. Of course, Cancer ruled by the moon. And how do we give ourselves emotional security? I gave a couple of podcasts to go listen to about how to tap into your moon sign so that you can help regulate and know what you need from an emotional basis. But the sun, which is in the water sign of Cancer and is all about this radiance and this radiant light, is trining Neptune at 29 degrees of Pisces. And this beautiful exact trine is saying that there is this collective consciousness, there's this unity and this interconnectedness that the waters are showing us. So even more so important to, as you're taking care of your body, to remember to hydrate, remember to stand up for water protections, remember to do your best to not buy bottled water. Sometimes you don't have a choice. I get it. But carry around your hydro flask, carry around your Yeti, carry around, in Hawaii right now, the kids carrying around their Stanley cups, whatever it is, carry around your bottles that you can reuse, because bottled water is like the worst thing that we can do, and we all have to be fighting for our water protections. Neptune is saying, so taking care of women, taking care of children, and knowing that we all have to be doing our part in this. And so this beautiful sun trine Neptune, remembering that part of your leadership, part of your finding your emotional security, to take charge, to be accountable for yourself, to see your own expertise and authority to go after what you want instead of out of duty. This is a spiritual calling. Yes, you are born to lead. Yes, your leadership and entrepreneurial journey is part of your spiritual journey and awakening. I find it so, 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 so beautiful. So, the last thing that I want to talk about this particular full moon is that it's kind of hard to see, but there is a wide T square. A T square happens when there is a planet that is squaring the opposing planets. And so it makes kind of like a half of a square called a T square. And at that midway point, I like to think of that midway point as somebody who's like an umpire, somebody who's making the call, who's holding the balance between the opposing moon and the sun, which is Chiron, the wounded healer. Chiron still in Aries. Chiron's getting ready to go into retrograde. And Chiron in Aries, Chiron, the wounded healer, also, he's not just wounded. Chiron is an amazing healer, an amazing mentor. And Chiron in our leadership and work has such a significant part, because Chiron teaches us that all of the big questions in our life that we are trying to answer because of our core wounds, and Chiron, our core wounds being our wounds for our own identity. Is it okay to be ourselves? Is it safe to be me? Is it safe to have this identity? I am. All of those questions that you're trying to answer are actually the gifts of service that you are contributing into the world. And so I love seeing that Chiron is the T square to this final anaretic degree of 29 degrees of Capricorn, because to me, this is everything that I've been talking about for the last few years about changing the faces of leadership. This is another call. The cosmos keeps on asking all of us, you, to see that you and your core wounds and everything that you have learned to overcome and ultimately excel and answer those questions about your original core wounds, that is your gift that you are meant to contribute into this world. And so if you're having trouble connecting the dots, I have a class on that lives on Astrology Hub. I have a class on Chiron and wounded leadership that I have living in my own Astrobrand library. Or, come to me for an Astrobrand session and we can dissect what Chiron means in your life, in your leadership, in your change making work. So for all of us, I hope you can see that this full moon is significant for all of us on the global stage. This full moon really wants you to say goodbye to those old parts of you that gave away your power, that looked to others for legitimacy or for to tell you that you did a good job. Can you see that you did a good job that yourself? Can you see your own power? Can you see your own authority? Can you see your own expertise? It's all wrapping up now because now we are being asked to take lead. Things are changing. Now, remember that leadership isn't how many followers you have or how loud you are. Leadership is about how you take initiative, how you guide others, how you keep your eye on your path. Leadership requires courage, heart, and wisdom. Be mindful of what you need to bravely blaze your own trail because no one has done it like you before. You are making that trail. Okay, so as we're redefining leadership and you are seeing your own authority as you're creating this new world, it's going to take a lot of self-regulation. Okay. And the final thing that I want to share with you in this episode is that earlier this week, I was speaking with my community Star Powered Circle. And if you don't know, I have a membership, a community. Star Powered Circle has several different levels. At the base level, you can participate in all of our meetups and a mini library of astrology teachings. At the middle level, you have access to the entire Astrobrand library. And at the highest level, you get one-on-one mentorship with me. But what's the greatest thing about Star Powered Circle is that it is a community of global leaders from all over the world. We have members from Europe, we have members from Australia, we have members from all over the United States and Canada. And the things that we have in common is that, well, we all love astrology and spirituality to guide our work. And the second thing is that we are all leaders. Some of us are business owners, some of us are executives, some of us are lawyers and healers and artists, but we are all leaders making change and coming together with these shared values of spirituality, astrology, and compassion and inner awakening, paired with our outer work of making a difference and making a mark in leadership is you can't, I don't know how to really talk about the value of that because when you are in it, you feel so seen and so validated and so held and so supported. And so when I think about the number one thing about how to regulate yourself and how to keep your eye on the path and how to keep fit mentally, spiritually, emotionally as the world is changing, is to be surrounded by people that share your values, that accept you for who you are, that really are positive influences and cheer you on. Remember at the very beginning of the episode, I said, watch what you consume. If you are surrounded with people who don't believe in you or who say that you can't do it or don't see you in the way that you need to be seen, that's part of that energy that you are taking in, that you are consuming. So to keep emotionally, spiritually, physically, and mentally fit and regulated requires a social support system. And so surround yourself with positive and like-minded people. If you don't have people in your locality, in your physical location, an online place is the next best thing. I love having my online communities as well as my in-person communities. There's just so much love to share. So if you need that kind of group of people, I want you to get onto my wait list because we'll be opening the doors for Star Powered Circle again in September. So head on over to my website, starpowered.com/circle. There's a place that you can sign up for the wait list, so you'll be sure to get notified when those doors open, and so you can join us, especially if you're on this change making kind of path and you need that extra support and want to surround yourself with like-minded people. Star Powered Circle is that place for you. Okay, so some other things that you need to keep yourself emotionally, spiritually, physically, and mentally fit and regulated as the world is changing. Remember, Maka'ala. Keep your mind, your heart, your eye on what you want, who you are. Now, I want you to dream and think about the utopian future that you want. It's similar to the Maka'ala about like what you want and who you are, but dream and take action towards that future. If you're constantly thinking about the doom and gloom and how the world is ending, then guess what? That's what you're putting into collective energy. So even if you're advocating against, all the destruction that's happening in the world, put as much energy into what you want to see in the world that is opposite of what is being destroyed. Okay. Just as important to put your desires into the world. Now, of course, getting into flow states, whether you like to meditate or journal or dance or moving your body, be sure to continually get into that clear space, get into those flow states so that you can have that mental aptitude and clarity. Be kind to yourself and others. It's much easier to be kind to others than it is to yourself. So be kind to yourself first most. Treat yourself like you would treat others. Move your body, not just to get into flow, but to like move that energy out. If things get stuck, if things get tight, when your body's in pain or when you're holding on to stuck emotions, they start to build up and fester. So make sure that you're moving your body every day, even if it's just going for a walk or just a little bit of stretching. Notice in your body where things are feeling stuck so that you can move that out. Remember to eat and hydrate well. Watch what you're putting into your body energetically, physically. And lastly, if you need professional support, it is a strength to go out and seek it. If you need some suggestions for professionals that are, licensed therapists who are also spiritual and love astrology, I have some really good resources for you. Hit me up and I will send them on your way. We could all use professional support sometimes. And when you're feeling really on edge, this is your call to get some professional support. Astrology can teach us a lot of things, but sometimes we need even just that extra support. Even I get therapy once in a while, and I am so grateful for the therapists that I trust and that I get to work with. So, my friends, this turned out to be a much longer episode than I thought it would be. I had a lot to say about this powerful time that we are in. Now, again, you don't have to be Chicken Little and say, the sky is falling, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. Instead, you can be your own star-powered leader and say, these are the things that I can change. This is what I want to create into the world, and pour that love, pour that support into the world, my friend. Thank your blessings, see your privilege, be grateful for all you have. I'm so grateful for you and for listening. Thank you so much for joining me, and listen. If you've made it this far listening, have a most beautiful, blessed full moon. There's so much change to be coming. What will you be pruning away so that you can fully become your star-powered leader? All right, my friends, bye for now. As a human design projector, my energy shines more brightly because of people like you who share my work. If you enjoy this podcast and want to help build a movement of innovative astrology and leadership and spark the intuitive revolution, please rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts, or better yet, share this podcast with your change-making besties. We will all shine brighter together as we create the future we want to see.